Well, good afternoon. It is August the 14th, so Wednesday. I just got done with lunch. I'm so full now, I need a nap. I thought I'd get on here and do my little video I like to do I try to on a somewhat daily basis. I had a little fun last night on Midtown's Best. Super Dave out there, and I want to thank you for having me on your show. Had good times, got to relive old times. And it was interesting. And of course, I look back at it and I'm thinking, my age is truly catching up with me. My speech has slowed down much more than what I thought it had. And after I looked at that thing, I'm thinking, I know what retirement is. Maybe I better get more into just short stories of times I've had while I can still remember them. Staying in the game of investigation and trying to give opinions out about today's activities is a little tougher than what I really thought I should be doing. And I'll tell you, part of that is, I watch these other videos of people that are doing the similar things to I am. And really the ones that are doing the best job are quite a bit younger than I am. And they're bringing videos into play and documentation and witnesses, people. And they put it all together and do a correct way of transmitting this information back to an audience. And I've just been on here raw and trying to pull it out of my brain of what I've seen, which is at best second-handed. But when you bring the documentation with you, you're getting the real deal. Two Lees in a Pod have, in the past few weeks, have really taught me a lesson on how a person should report what they see. Because so many people will say, well, show me. And you guys are doing it. And Dave, Super Dave out there, I want to tell you, you're a young fella and you do an excellent job out there, and you do the same thing. You get out there and you bring the documentation with you. And you explain it in a way that everybody understands. And I know you both get hit with all these people that like to second guess you and tell you you're all wet and stuff like that. And you handle it very well, I think. And the moderators, it looks like, are able to do their job as well. It's very hard to put a video up, a live one, especially, and have all these people in there trying to distract you. And it can bring you kind of to a halt while you think about what are they trying to do, and then going back and trying to prove something. In my book, you guys, when they leave you alone, you go through your whole thing and you bring your documentation with you. And I'd say half the questions that are thrown out there by these trolls are well answered before they even get a chance to really get in there and try to hammer you. All they need to do is keep their mouth shut through at least half the show, and they'll get their answers answered before they get a chance. I got an idea. What they like to do is get something out there that puts a bad spin on what you're talking about. And then whoever's been in there may have had to leave, and they're after that outburst, and they don't get a chance to see the rebuttal. And that's just not right. But hey, so is life. So life can be that way. On myself, what I did is I went back and I looked at that video, and in my mind, my speech is fast enough and competitive enough to keep up with most people. But in reality, when I look at it, no, it doesn't match how you feel or how I feel. But I think I can do well enough of just getting on here once in a while and telling a short story about an experience. And it could be interesting. Only you would be able to tell me whether it's interesting or not. But we're going to try to go with something like that. I'll come up with something. I'll say it. If you enjoy it, fine. If you don't, we'll find a different story. Because if I tell 100 stories, there's bound to be one you like. When I was growing up, the older people, of course we didn't have TV, but the older people would tell you stories, and we were always, as young people, we'd be glued to the side of their chair or at a table and listening with enthusiasm as to what went on. And one thing my grandparents never did was go into the middle of a story and say that they were going to finish it tomorrow. They would finish it the day they started it. And that's my biggest gripe out here on some of the people on YouTube is they'll give you half the story or a third of the story and tell you have to come back for part 2 or part 3 or 4 or whatever. They start to number them out and you get out there to about part 9 or 10 and it's done wore out. You're done with it. I know it's a ploy to just get people coming back. It's part of the game. A lot of the people out there are making money off it, and that's fine. One of the things that makes me think that after looking at my own video, or the video that I was on last night, I seen some things on there that remind me of how the reaction is of some of the leaders of our country that are my age, how they're reacting as well. Now, Mr. Biden has recently pulled back from running for president for a second term. And I think it was a good choice. And I realize he was probably coached into that by people around him. When you're in that state, and include me in as far as in that transition, at my age, I'm at that point where I'm going to transition into those stages where I won't have a realization of some of the topics I'm talking about. More and more, it's easier to talk in a circle and jumping from one subject to another and not even know it till you go back to that subject and you say, oh, I messed up. Well, that's one of the traits of senility setting in. No different than last night, and I was talking about 700, or it came out 700 subs instead of over 700,000 subs. 10 times difference in meaning. And that's just one example. And I didn't catch a lot of things, but at least I seen where at the time when I said it, I thought I was saying 700,000, but I only said 700 people. And that was in reference to the subs that Jeremiah has. And I'm sure some of you caught it. I don't know if you caught it and said anything in the chat down there. I haven't seen everything in the chat, although I looked at a lot of it. But the little nuances that come with age, the leaders of our country, I see it in them, and have said something about it. And here I am, not too far off from doing the same thing. Now, even though Biden stepped down, Mr. Trump is starting to show some of those nuances of age. And it's not that he's not a smart individual or capable of doing a lot of the things. You know, he proved it. He was one of the few presidents that has taken competency tests while he was still in office and came out excellent, mentally excellent. But you never know when that age factor is going to be the real thing. So at that point, you always have to look, who is the vice president? Who is going to take that place should this person fail? And the same way, even though Kamala, I guess it is, she's running for president in lieu of Biden. And she's chosen a vice president to run with her. A lot of times people think that vice president is just a tag along, you don't have to worry about him. And that's not the case. You know, when J.F. Kennedy died, when he was shot down there in Dallas, Johnson became the president. And I thought most of the people probably never thought that would happen, because here you have John F. Kennedy, he's fairly young. Who would have thought that somebody would assassinate him? I never thought it. I was in the service when he got shot. You know, just like Trump, somebody tried to assassinate him. So you never know when something like that could happen. So when we're choosing a president of a nation, we're also choosing or accepting the choice of a vice president. You and I didn't vote him in, we didn't push him up there, but the president made that choice of, let's bring this guy on or this woman on, whatever we're going to do as the vice, the second, the person that's going to take over. Myself, I think that it should be a matter of the people's choice, and because of the reason that they will run the country if the other one is incapacitated. But our fathers of our nation didn't want, or didn't think of it in that manner, I guess. So we're stuck with what we've got. We just are. Now in the Senate, we've got a minority leader that is obviously has some very bad health issues. And he has frozen up more than once while he's talking. And I don't know what caused it. We'll probably never find out until his memoirs are written, what really went on. But he did freeze up more than once. And I realize he's going to step down and get out this election cycle. And I'm not even so sure he shouldn't have stepped down before that. And I know it's all a game of politics. You worry about who's going to take the place and all. I guess if you want a person that age, if you want to see him pass away on the pulpit, so be it, I guess. I can't imagine that. We have people in the Congress and Senate that are way beyond their age of reasoning, and we've seen it over and over. I think, from my standpoint, it should be limited. No matter how good a person is, age comes into play someday. And some of these people don't know when to step down and are going to have to be forced into that decision. Now, for me to retire, that was easy for me because I had a stroke, and that marked my days. And it was somewhat deliberating at the time, deliberating. But it limited certain things that I could or couldn't do, and there was some lasting things that happened over that stroke. And some of it bothers me to this day. And it wasn't too much longer that I stuck around that I actually did retire. I mean, we're talking like 6-7 months later, I was saying goodbye. And I was offered at different times, to come back for limited things. And I turned it down. When I retired, I really was ready for it. So utilizing that kind of a analogy to look forward on what I do on here, it's not that I'm too old to have a little fun and use it as a hobby, because that's why I'm doing it. It is the point where you have to say, my investigative powers are not anywhere near as good as the people who I'm watching out there. And I'm talking about Two Lees in a Pod and Super Dave. Both of them are much quicker and faster than what I can produce, and much more accurate. And I think as their subs grow, not only will they get better, but the program itself will. Because the program will grow right along with these people. You get more enthusiastic. It's like when a person gets up on stage and they're producing, if they're acting on stage or singing or wherever they are. The more active the crowd is, the better the singer can sing because they put their self in there. They're trying to please you. And if it's easier to please at that point, 3,000 people that are calling your name out, than it is to just try to please 3. Because you see all them empty seats, and it's like, oh boy, nobody likes me no more. So you want to get on there and hopefully you'll sub to these people out there so you can get your notifications when they're putting a program up. And you can help them grow and help them get better. You're really, when you put a program on, you're probably only about as good as what your subs are. Your subs are the ones that put in the comments and give you new ideas and give you the pat on the back when you need it, kick in the pants when you need it. And sometimes they do part of your investigation for you in the stories that you're trying to get out to the balance of the audience. It's a good place for everybody to come in and participate. So if you're thinking about doing it, and you're up there, let's say you're my age, you still may have the capabilities to do the things I was trying to do, and that's fine. Just know when the day is that you need to step back from it. But do the things you can do, and that's what I plan on doing as much as I can in the future. Now, I'm not saying I'm not going to say something about Otter Creek. If I see something, I'll probably say something. Okay. Everybody there apparently does. They've been told to do that. But I'm not going to put a main show on about that kind of stuff, Otter Creek or any other town. If I see somebody that's getting beat up on, I may go in there and say something about that. But I'm not going to make a career out of it or a great big story. And I'm not going to try to blow something out of the water that shouldn't be. I've seen enough of it. And quite frankly, things like this, that poor town is really taking a beating. They don't have a very good reputation amongst the people out here that are on the other side of the keyboard, looking at us, the creators, the way we portrayed the town. And I say that broadly, the we, I don't have a mouse in my pocket, but I'm talking about, in general, the problems that we portrayed out there. And what it came down to, it's nothing more than a neighborhood fight between 2 outsiders in a small town. And I have lived in towns that size. I can't imagine, this is the first time I've seen this much turned upside down. It really was. I think eventually everything will blow away, blow out, whatever it's going to do. The only thing I can do is pray that somebody don't get hurt badly for it. It just doesn't wear well. It's like a ratty coat. If you want to get noticed, wear a ratty coat to the store. You'll get noticed. And some people that are out there making videos, in fact, the subjects they use is like wearing a ratty coat to the grocery store. Yeah. It might even describe their personality when it really comes down to it. People are what they are. If you want to make a list, good and bad, and look through it, how many bads does it take to erase the one good? I think you just have to use a little bit of conscience. And I hope most of you were raised with good morals. With that, I'm going to get away from this. You don't need me to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. That should already be a part of you. And a lot of times you've heard me talk about the difference between man's law and God's law. There is a difference. I hope you choose the right path when you're making those decisions down the road. I do hope you enjoyed some of my investigative things I did. After looking at how I look on there for over a 2-hour period, I'm afraid my age really did catch up with me and show up. It's not that there's anything real wrong with it, but I can see little nuances in there that the younger people wouldn't have or done in that manner. And after all, we're on here to entertain somebody or to get information across. And it behooves us to do a better job on it than I'm doing. I know you enjoy some of the slower paced, the pace that I do in some instances. I do bring experience, but it's not necessarily that it's going to be that interesting. It's just me. So if anything I can do to help you, I'll sure do that on this too, okay? I will leave this with this part. It's been a fun ride. I've taken some beatings and some accolades. I really hope, earnestly hope, that town is able to recover in a positive manner. I hope some of them will understand, us people that were outsiders, the biggest share of us should have never got involved in it. And shame on us for making this neighborhood fight be transmitted over the entire world. That was really, it was done it is in bad taste, I realize that. And as much as we want to get the good part of it across, sometimes it takes a long time to get evil, out of a story. And trying to figure out which one is the worst. When you have two bad people in front of you, how do you choose which one is the worst? I don't know. And after looking at all the comments and stuff I see over the different channels, I can see very well that most of you don't know which one is the best choice. I certainly don't. I mean, I have a personal way I feel about it. But it may not be your personal will. And with that, use the good sense the good Lord give you. Forgive those you can. Walk away from it. If you can't do something about it and make it right, there's no sense of sitting there and making it a fight. I've seen how some people there handle things. Some of them do very well. And I got an idea that if those two people hadn't been in town and got that fight going, the town actually would have been well off, or just as. And I know you're going to say, "Oh, the council was bad," and you talked about the mayor, and you talk about the people in the wearing the uniform, and the judge in the pulpit, and sometimes we make a mountain out of a molehill. You and me, we fall for it. And in this instance here, I can see that there's good and bad in every one of those departments. And we hope it can come around. And the people that talk about them or with them or against them, they swing with the pendulum according to what they do for them. And we've seen it swing both ways by the same person. This guy's doing well. Well, he didn't do so good here. He's a jerk. I mean, we hear that. We see it. And in reality, it's just a human person doing their job in the best way they can. And without them, who would do it for them? And like somebody said, sounds like I'm talking in a circle. I'm just saying, make your best guess. How can you go wrong, right? With that, I'm off for the day. Hopefully, I can come up with stories that can be entertaining in the future. Investigating is not going to be so much one. Yes, I'll talk about, doesn't matter whether it's Dalton, Illinois, or Chicago, or Otter Creek, Florida, or who knows. It won't be an investigative story that carries on for a year or two. It'll be nothing more than one show with an opinion and move on to something else, and hopefully I can talk about things that are very positive. We'll talk about different first times of doing something. And no, I'm not talking about getting in the gutter to tell you about first times. But things that everyday life that you run into, everybody has a first thing that they did. First time you had a certain meal. Or I can tell you something. When I was young, and a lot of you might not believe this. Now, I've helped in the butchering of, steers and cows, hogs, and every type of wild game there is. I mean, wild game that you're going to get here in the U.S. Other than like bears. I've never cleaned a bear. But I didn't realize how many different types of steak there was till I went in the Army. I always thought round steak was the cream of the crop. And round steak is a very tough steak back then. So I was pretty naive when I was young. So when I went in the Army, the first time I had a sirloin or something to that effect, even a T-bone, in the military you can get those things. And I was actually on an air base where they had 24-hour mess hall, where you could have steak, or you could have eggs and pancakes and things like that, or shrimp, 24 hours a day. You went in there and told them what you wanted, and that's what you got. Didn't matter what time it was, but that was on an air base, an active air base. So that gives you an idea how good it can be in the military, and how a young fellow that's never really done anything got in there and got an education. You see what I'm getting? So there was a lot of firsts in the military, and I'll tell you a few of them when we come back and do another one of these vids. With that, listen, you have a good day out there, and I hope you enjoyed last night's show. A shout out again to Super Dave for having me on there as a guest. And a shout out to Lee's in the Pod that put on such a great show out there. And they've actually shown a path for me. I really learned something with them too, was the fact of how important it is to have documentation and making it real so that you can understand what's going on and not listen to hearsay. So great shows. I will be watching them and making comments and things like that. So come on back when you get a chance. Raise your eyes. It's back online and probably out of Otter Creek. See you later.